So what we'll do a couple of clips here where he's talking really about rates increases and stuff, because we love the conversation around rates increases, not because we celebrate the rates increases, but because the previous government had somewhat of a solution for these increases in a little thing called Three Waters. These guys ran off the back of a racist, narrative through the country, means it got cancelled, and now everyone's getting rate increases, and everyone's going, why? And it was all explained last year. You just chose not to see it. So here's the first conversation where they're talking about, in particular, rates increases.
What's interesting is that the average rates rises around the country about 15%, right? So it's not just one or two councils that are seeing these big increases. They're big increases, not universally, but very much across the board. We're seeing them all over.
And some councils have done a great job, and others haven't. Like if you go up to Northland, the Far North District Council, they consulted on a 14% increase in their rates. They finalised on a 4.5%.
Yes, and how did they do that? How did they do that? They got a one-off $5 million dividend.
No, it wasn't one-off.
It is. It's a one-off $5 million dividend.
Well, it's about how they manage the rest.
Yeah, so they got a $5 million dividend that they're not going to be able to rely on for next year. So what do they do next year?
Well, ultimately, that's why we've got our focus around local.
But I mean, that's such a you just use this as an example of a council managing its assets. That's a council that is in the unique position of being able to get what they described as a one-off dividend of $5 million for this year, and they won't be able to rely on for next year. My question is, if we
I want to expand on that a little bit. So Far North District Council have been given a dividend of a huge amount of money, right? They've used that this year to offset the rates. The rates increases are only going up 4% rather than 14% now. And Simeon Brown's going, but look, some councils are doing well, but the point that Jack's making, it's a one-off. So this dude is sitting there going, but some councils are very responsible, when really this council, for want of a better word, has won lotto this year, but it's not going to help them next year. And the example they're giving is, look at this council that's won lotto this year. Haven't they done well to bring their rates down from 14% increases to 4% increases? It's so disingenuous. It's such horseshit. It's such a it's not just the shell game. This is just absolute squirrel look away. That sounds good, 14-4.
It also trucks every council that isn't in that position, that doesn't have a dividend like that to rely on, in the corner of, you are a bad council who didn't manage your assets well.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep going.
We have seen, to your point, yes, some councils have lower rates than 15%, but across the board, the average is about 15%. So my question is, are all councils being irresponsible? If we are seeing that level of rates increases everywhere, not just at one or two councils.
Well, I think the message from the Prime Minister was, when you're seeing rates increasing at more than 4 times the rate of inflation, there are serious questions that need to be answered, and we are going to intervene as a government to say, actually, those
they were answered last year, and there was explained how they wouldn't get there, and you guys fanned the flames of disinformation around what that meant, and now you're going, look at all why are the rates going up? You can't have it both ways. You can't fan the flames to kill the conversation that explained how we keep rates rises down, and now go, why are rate rises up? You can't have it both ways, Simeon. I'm sorry, you just can't.
All well-beings, they will be removed, because we know that when they're not in legislation, rates do not increase as fast.
Yeah.
We're also going to be doing some benchmarking, and we're going to look at rate capping in terms of those non-core activities. So, all of those examples you provided earlier, well, actually, we're going to be requiring them to find efficiencies through actually saying those non-core areas, there's going to be a cap on how much you can do. That's exactly what they do in New South Wales.
Right.
And that's what we're going to do here.
So what they're saying is, from central government, we are now going to mandate that you can only spend this much in council. Remember how the same thing as last government, the centralizing of decision making, how that was all bad. And now they're going to, he's literally sitting there saying, we will tell you councils how much of that money you're allowed to spend on these issues from central government. That's where he's going. And I think Jack points it out now.
So we could see some of those centres, essentially, once you've capped it, not supported. Some of those.
A rate cap means
theatre, the arts centre.
The rate cap means that they won't be able to increase their rates on beyond what is set for those non-tour activities.
So that was the example Jack was giving, was those list of nice to haves that we talked about before. Now, this has been observed a lot in this government. We've just seen it there again, that they ran on not centralising various things like Three Waters and not allowing central government to take over, whilst now with central government they are taking over. Something else that we've acknowledged them doing, Chewy, a lot, is they keep saying things like, oh, cutbacks when in the public service, that'll be down to the chief executives. That'll be down to the chief. It's up to the chief executives. When the chief executives then do something they don't like, they then step in. You can't have it both ways, and they do it again now. And Jack points that exact point, not with government department cuts, but in general, this is an example of them doing it again, exactly the same thing, as they'll step in when it doesn't suit their narrative. And other than that, if things aren't going well, they step back and they go, nothing to do with us. And he's looking at councils for this. Hypocrisy about council control is the title of this clip.
So councils know what is needed for their communities and should not be forced or mandated to take a one-size-fits-all approach. That was you in the House in February.
That's too good. We need to hear that again. Exactly what he said there. Just listen. This is what Simeon said. Have a listen.
Fenced or something like that. So councils know what is needed for their communities and should not be forced or mandated to take a one-size-fits-all approach. That was you.
Councils know they should not be forced. Simeon Brown. That's what he said.
In the House in February. So do you support giving Auckland Council full control over Auckland Transport?
Well, we've agreed with Mayor Wayne Brown that we need far more democratic accountability over Auckland Transport, and we're working through some options on how to deliver that.
But not full control, right? And so you go through it. Auckland Council wanted the regional fuel tax. That localism you didn't like, so you scrapped it. Māori wards were established by councils around the country. Voters who disagreed have the power to vote out those councils. But again, you didn't like that localism.
Well, that is localism, because that's local communities deciding on their local.
But they could.
No, it's not. It's you deciding what local governments have to do. Yeah. It's you telling them. It's you dictating to them what is best that they have to do.
You didn't like that localism?
Well, that is localism, because that's local communities deciding on their local.
But they could have done it anyway, right? Councils have decided on this, and they could have voted out those councils.
No, those councils were not required to go to the public.
Yeah.
We're just putting in Helen Clark's law from 2001.
So if you don't, that's all we're doing. So if you don't like,
we're just bringing back Helen Clark's law. Jack.
The point is that councils that are democratically elected have voted to introduce these mechanisms or these wards. And if people didn't like it, they could have voted out those councils.
This is a more pure form of localism. We're actually letting local voters make the decision.
Okay.
In that case,
we can scrap.
So you want to carve them off now? Okay, we'll put that one aside, shall we?
We'll put that one aside, and I'll give you three others instead. So Auckland Council wanted the regional fuel tax. You didn't like that.
Well, we went to the public. The public voted for us. We said to remove it. We did.
Even for something as simple as congestion charging, right? Councils can only do it if you give them permission.
Well, ultimately, we need to pass the law. I mean, councils cannot do that without a law change. We've brought a law change to Parliament.
But if you believe in localism, you believe that councils know what's best for their communities. How come you keep on dictating what they can and can't do?
I think there's a good point to be made here in terms of congestion charging, or time of use charging, as we're calling it. And that is.
And this is now where he doesn't answer the question at all, and he starts talking about the congestion charges, and that's all he does now.
Network benefits. The government owns and runs the state highways. Council is responsible for local roads, and so actually it's a partnership. That's what's required to ensure that it works for the network.
And even though you haven't heard it at all, I think in the next 60 seconds he says the word potholes 3 times, Joe.
Rather than it simply just being one part of whether it's council or government.
You said that localism is really important. The local communities know what's best for them. Local councils should have the authority to do that. But every time they try to do something, you say, no, we don't like that.
No, what we said, actually, councils, if you're putting in a time of use scheme in Auckland, you've got people use the state highways, or they use local roads. And actually, we need to have a partnership approach to that. Look, and that's the approach we're taking to that. Legislation's got to go through Parliament.
So anyway, we'll just leave it there. It keeps on going on. It goes back. So he doesn't answer. Well done, Jack Tame. And that is the videos for tonight. Do you want to pick up on any of that, Troy, before we get to super chats and get the heck out of Dodge?
Oh, Simeon Brown.
Little Simeon.
Little wee Simeon. Yeah, I love how his little face lit up when he's like, oh, I can mention Helen Clark. I'm going to mention Helen Clark 3 times in 5 minutes with a big fucking grin on my face. Don't worry, us lefties also acknowledge that as much as we liked Auntie Helen in the mid-2000s was not a great person. And if we're talking about that around Māori wards, that's not the win you think it is, Simeon. Yeah. That is not the win you think it is.
Yeah.